This is security footage of a car plowing into a police station. Luckily, it wasn't a robot from the future looking to terminate anyone in the building though, just a dude in a blouse with no pants ranting and raving that he was possessed by the devil, throwing rubber snakes all around the place. Guess what state this happened in? It's Florida. So in June of 2024, a 40-year-old man named Joseph Leedy made headlines in Martin County, Florida when he drove his Toyota sedan straight into the lobby of the Martin County Jail. The cops found Leedy wearing only a woman's blouse with no pants. He'd poured motor oil on the floor and threatened to set the place on fire. Leedy also threw rubber snakes onto the floor and made disturbing statements, including that the quote devil told me to kill everyone. Deputies of course tried to subdue Leedy as he resisted arrest. Even after being tased and given multiple doses of medicine to try and calm him down, he still wasn't cooperating. Leedy was eventually restrained though and taken to a hospital where he just kept yelling and screaming. Fortunately, no one was injured during the incident as the lobby was empty at the time. This next eerie clip comes out of Mexico. A teacher was captured on a security camera one night marking some papers when he started to act strangely. See, according to him, the mother of a student came to the classroom door and they had started having a conversation, but everyone was confused because the only person on camera was him. The teacher said that this parent came to the door and asked him for a student, who of course wasn't there. The school day had ended. He then said he watched as the mom walked to an adjacent room, at which point he got up to speak to her more, but when he got to that room, he found it was completely empty. And there was no sign of the woman anywhere in the hallway either. Suddenly, it dawned on him that something was just off about this whole situation, at which point he decided to grab his stuff and get the hell out of there. Now this may be one of the most famous instances of a possible possession captured on security footage. The woman in the clip is named Debbie Berman. She was on a ghost hunt, part of a team investigating one of the most haunted houses in Britain, a place called The Cage in St. Osyth, Essex. It used to be a prison for women accused of witchcraft back in the Elizabethan era. 8 of these supposed witches are said to have died there. Well, the ghost hunting crew decided that they were going to stay overnight, and at around 3 a.m., while they were in the master bedroom, said to be the most active room in the house, something strange happened. Debbie started acting weird. Well, more like her face started acting weird, morphing into this twisted, ghoulish grin, her eyes turning pitch black, and it was all caught on one of the security cameras they'd placed in the room. Lead investigator Brad Mack was pretty shaken up, saying she looked totally unrecognizable. And things got even freakier when Debbie said that her back was burning. She lifted her jacket and there were 4 deep scratches down her back. Nobody was near her, nobody touched her, at least no one the team was able to see. There's this wild piece of footage out of Brazil that started making the rounds back in 2017. It was recorded at Miguel Couto Municipal Hospital in Rio de Janeiro, and honestly, it's one of the creepiest things ever caught on camera inside a hospital. So this guy shows up with a bullet wound to the face, and instead of lying down and waiting for help like a normal injured person, he starts wandering the halls. But it's not just stumbling around, he's walking like he's being taken over by something. His back is all rounded back, his arms and legs are jerking in these weird, unnatural ways, and he's screaming. But it doesn't sound exactly like screams of pain. Instead, it almost sounds like he's exhilarated, being controlled by someone or something else. Security guards managed to capture some of the altercation on camera. There was no official word from the hospital about what actually happened. They never released a diagnosis, never explained it medically. Any level-headed person would, of course, assume he was on something, but without context, you'd probably think this was behind-the-scenes footage of a zombie movie or something. In York County, Pennsylvania, a mom of 4 named Amanda Pitt caught something really weird on her security camera. It rattled her so badly, her family started thinking about moving. So at 3:40 a.m. on October 21st of 2023, Amanda had been sleeping when she suddenly woke up to the sound of heavy footsteps inside the house. Naturally, she checked her security camera feed, expecting to see her husband or maybe one of the kids moving around, but no, what she saw was something else entirely. "I made sure Jeffrey was still in bed because I thought it could be him," she said. "I checked on the camera and stared at it for a little bit because I thought I saw somebody." On the feed, there was this blurry, ghostly figure just standing in the doorway of her kitchen, not walking, not moving, it was just there. Totally freaked out, she shook Jeffrey awake and told him to go check it out. He crept downstairs, and there was nothing. No open doors, no broken windows, there was no sign of a break-in. But their dog, Ollie, was acting sorta weird, pacing the kitchen, clearly shaken up by something. Amanda couldn't shake the feeling. She stayed up the rest of the night, glued to the TV, trying to calm herself down, but that image was burned into her brain. "I couldn't go back to sleep. I laid there and turned on the TV because I was scared," Amanda continued. "I kept going back to the camera, but I couldn't see it anymore, so I thought maybe I was seeing things. The next morning, I didn't even know what to make of it." She kept a screenshot of the ghostly figure just to prove that she wasn't going crazy, but even with the photo, she still kept checking the camera again and again, trying to convince herself that she'd just imagined it. Thing is, this wasn't the only time something strange had happened in the home. "Things have happened here before," Amanda said. "The people who lived here before didn't live here for very long, but we never found out why." Amanda and her family moved in back in 2020, and weird stuff started happening almost immediately. She'd get camera alerts on her phone when no one was home. Doors would open on their own. The kitchen sink turned itself on one time. "I've never been a ghost believer, but we've had things happen that make us question it," she admitted. "That picture is terrifying. Thinking there's something like that in your house, you question everything." Well, if the dead ever did start rising from their graves and we had a real-life zombie situation on our hands, I imagine it would look something like this. This is some doorbell camera footage of a man trying to break into a house. I don't think this guy lives here. Now, obviously he's on something, right? Or a concoction of substances, but my God, it does look like a zombie. The raggedy clothing, the scrapes and bruises all over his body, how lanky he is. It looks like he was just bitten by a walker from The Walking Dead. He's so out of his mind that he starts violently throwing himself into the door, and he hits it so hard that he eventually just falls backward, having nearly knocked himself out cold. I do not want to think about what this guy would have done if he'd made it inside the home. See if you spot anything creepy about this next clip. Here's some context for this one. So this is surveillance footage from a manga cafe inside a multi-tenant building in Japan. The camera is set up right at the reception counter, capturing footage of the elevator near the entrance. Now notice as the elevator doors open and the man exits the doors. He's not alone in that small elevator. Right behind him, you can spot this tall woman in a red dress. At first, it doesn't look all that unusual, but take a closer look. Doesn't she look almost freakishly tall? She'd have to bend down to clear the elevator doors. But maybe she wasn't standing there. To some, it looks more like she's floating in the air. Not to mention that she's completely motionless. The more you look at this clip, the more unsettling it gets. It almost looks like footage you'd see from The Ring. Especially because, according to people in the neighborhood, the woman in the clip, as grainy and low quality as it is to be fair, looked a lot like a woman who'd taken her life in a nearby park not long before this footage was taken. And, of course, we need to talk about the infamous Elisa Lam case, one of the most unsettling pieces of security footage online. Back in 2013, Elisa, a Canadian student, was staying at the Cano Hotel in downtown LA. She went missing, and no one could figure out what happened to her. Then the LAPD dropped that elevator footage, the one we've all seen. It's only a couple minutes long, but man, it gave everyone the creeps. In the video, Elisa steps into the elevator and starts pushing a bunch of buttons, like all of them, but the elevator doors won't close. Then she starts peeking her head out like she's hiding from someone. She moves her hands in this strange, slow motion sort of way as she steps in and out of the elevator, almost like she's playing a game. She also looks like at one point she's talking to someone, but no one else ever appears in the footage. This was all authorities had to work off of. She was nowhere to be found. A couple weeks later, though, hotel guests started complaining that their water tasted funny. and sometimes it would come out muddy and dark. Maintenance checks the rooftop water tanks, and well, there's Elisa's body. But this just opened up a whole Pandora's box. Most of it centered around two very big questions though. Why was she there, and how did she get in there? The doors were supposedly locked and alarmed, and the tank was not easy to access, especially in the state she was in. The official cause of death was accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder listed as a contributing factor here. Still, that elevator footage has fueled theories for years. Everything from ghostly possession to some sort of cover-up. Maybe someone was there off camera she was hiding from. Well, there are still a lot of unanswered questions about this case to this very day, which is why we still talk about it. So you wake up one morning to find holes in your garage door. You check your security camera to see what's going on, and while skimming through the footage, you see this. Now, I can't find the source of the original video here, so if any of you can, please let me know down below. But my god, whatever the hell this thing is, it doesn't appear to be human. I think if I saw holes in a wooden door in my backyard, I might think it was a raccoon, maybe a large rat. But Gollum? I think that's the last thing I'd be expecting or wanting to see. The pig demon. Take a listen to this before I give you all the backstory. Can you make that out? Sounds a lot like someone saying, I have the body of a pig. Which wouldn't be so freaky if anyone in the room had said that they remembered hearing it, or that they'd said it themselves. But nobody did. It wasn't until they looked over the footage later that this audio came up. This video is uploaded to YouTube by Devin Raymond, who wrote in the description that the recording was an EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon, picked up in a secret location during his tenure as a special guest and resident expert with a group that he can't disclose. Now, the EVP on its own is pretty disconcerting, but check out what they caught on camera later on. While filming into a dark crevice, they picked up this still image right here. Definitely would have been disturbing in person, or even going back and looking at the footage you'd taken earlier, knowing you were right there with whatever this thing was. But I like the fact that this demonic spirit or ghost or whatever it may have been would just announce to everyone, I have the body of a pig. You look at it, it's like, I guess, yeah, you do look a little piggish. This next video comes to us from Reddit user Kipper2. Take a look. Now, pretty much everyone in the comments, including me, is saying this is a reflection on the window coming from inside the house. And while you could say it's just someone standing behind the camera person, take a closer look at the reflection. That looks like the demon face that shows up at the end of Skinamarink. Just what the hell is that? It looks almost like two faces kind of attached together. Kipper2 also gave some context in the description, writing, a family member of mine shared this live photo she took of a deer in her and her husband's front yard. The two of them lived alone in this old southern farmhouse, previously owned by an older gentleman who had passed away in the home. She'd complained a few times about hearing walking in the attic. It wasn't long after this photo that they decided to move out. And yeah, best not to take your chances and just get out of there. See what happens when you mess with Ouija boards? Take a look at this. This video was posted to YouTube by Ouija Warning, a very apt name for a channel with a video like this. In the 2 or so minute clip, we watch as a group of girls and dudes mess with a Ouija board. One woman in the video, the one who ends up freaking out at the end, is laughing and joking the whole time as the planchette begins spelling out Zozo. She then asks if the spirit's name is Zozo, and when the planchette moves to yes, she begins to laugh again. Only this time, her laughter becomes less joyful and more hysterical, in a pained, panicked sort of way. Now, I've talked about Zozo on the channel before, a demonic entity said to haunt Ouija boards. An entity so malicious it's been known to cause physical harm on those who are unfortunate enough to run into it. Basically, if you're playing with a Ouija board and you end up contacting an entity and the letter Z or Z, depending on where you live, comes up at all, just stop right there. It's such a rare letter. Unless you asked it what its favorite anime is and the words dragon and ball came before it, just don't take your chances. The Valentine Ghost. This footage was taken in the Valentine Museum in Victor, New York. Take a look. On April 21st of 2006, paranormal investigation was being carried out at the museum. Now, the quality of this footage isn't great, but you do see what looks like a semi-translucent figure walking out of the shadows and past the camera. This has actually become a rather famous piece of footage in paranormal circles as well, because apparently it's never been fully definitively explained. According to the New York Haunted Houses website, the historic Valentine Museum was built in 1879, originally called Valentine Hall. It's a 5-story building which is now a museum with thousands of old artifacts and a good number of ghosts. Spirits have been known to play an old-fashioned music box, move tools around in the basement, and people have even seen full-blown apparitions. So, is this strange figure in the video one of these ghosts? Let me know your thoughts down below. This image right here comes from Reddit user According Pangolin84, who writes, "I'm not familiar with ghosts and paranormal things, so I don't know the logic behind anything, but I came across this old photo I have from a haunted mansion in Utah. This place was a hot spot to break into during high school, and my friends did it and wanted a photo while I stayed back in the car. The figure in the back is what I suspect to be some kind of ghost. I only had 2 friends go in the house for a photo." The Reddit user also gave some context about this haunted mansion itself in a follow-up post, writing, "It's called the Benjamin Pump House in Utah. It has no electricity and is pretty much empty on the inside besides garbage. Growing up, I heard a lot of stories about scary interactions in the house, people reporting footsteps and the feelings of being watched. As far as my friends and what they felt, all I can recall is them talking about what sounded like someone walking through the brush around the house, and there was a weird creaking that also circled around the house, but nothing in relation to being watched or feeling like there was someone else in there." This image here was shared by Reddit user PositiveCable1487, who writes, "Earlier this month, my sister and her partner went to the Stanley Hotel. Don't know the backstory on the mirror, but apparently there are many reports of sightings in it. This is the photo my sister took. She said the mirror was squeaky clean in person, no smudges." Now, this image may not be all that creepy on its own, but the Stanley Hotel definitely is. Let me tell you fine folks about it. The Stanley Hotel is famously the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. He'd been snowed in there with his family in 1974 while on a trip to the Rocky Mountains National Park. They happened to be the only guests there and found the place rather eerie. And King isn't the only guest to have found the place unsettling. Tons of people have reported spooky encounters at the hotel, like the ghost of a woman named Mrs. Wilson, former chambermaid, said to haunt room 217. Staff have reported hearing sounds of people dancing and laughing in the ballroom, only to find nobody there. Guests will often report seeing dark figures standing over their beds at night, and it's said that the spirit of the former landowner, Lord Dunraven, will often be seen staring out the window of room 407. From TikToker Ahab Kasmaya1 comes a terrifying encounter he had while exploring an abandoned building. He's filming down a dark hallway when suddenly a knocking sound is heard off camera, and when the urban explorer pans to take a look, this is what happened. Now, instead of screaming at the top of his lungs and running away at top speed, the brave man begins praying instead, and the entity retreats back into the shadows. Which, you know what, hey, seemed to work great and all, but here's another idea: just don't be there in the first place. You win every fight you walk away from at the end of the day. Reddit user HealthyMagician895 posted this series of images here, along with a description reading, "I was messing around in my mom's room taking a video when my friend pointed out something at the corner of the door. At the end of the video, I went back to the mirror, but it was gone. Can somebody explain this? I'm genuinely creeped out." And yeah, fair enough. I'd be genuinely creeped out too if I saw that thing peeking out at me from the doorway. Here's what's interesting about this photo too. It reminds me a lot of a video I shared in part 1. If you'd like to watch part 1, by the way, link is in the description. But just for a quick comparison, check this out. Yeah, pretty eerily similar. Even the positioning. What do you all think though? Hoax? Or is there a ghoulish demon thing crawling around people's houses and peering out at them from the tops of door frames? I certainly hope not. Imagine hearing a noise in your hallway at 3 a.m., going out into your hallway to check it out, and spotting this. This one comes from TikToker Official Empty Alien. I don't even care that's not real. I had to throw it on here because that is some fuel for your nightmares right there. The long fingers slowly creeping into frame. I think that's what really does it for me. This is pretty much the exact face I'd scare the crap out of myself, imagining it as a youngster popping up in a window or glaring at me from the bottom of the stairs at night. It's kind of uncanny actually too. The white face, the glare, the big eyes and the teeth, I don't know, it's always what I'd imagine for whatever reason, and then I'd be up all night. Fun times. Someone capture a shadow person on camera lurking over their bed. This video comes from Carrie E on YouTube, who noticed something terrifying on her home smart camera. Clearly, there's this dark black shape standing in the corner of the room. And, you know, at first I didn't really think much of this. I mean, it's not hard to put on some dark clothes and lurk in a corner, but then it moves, and that's when you notice just how unnatural this thing really is. It zips across the room so fast, and in such a smooth, unnatural motion. This is clearly not a person. On top of that, watch how blurry it becomes. It doesn't look like a solid mass anymore. If you've ever had sleep paralysis and felt like something was standing over you or sitting on your chest and restricting your breathing, well, this video probably ain't gonna help you sleep any better, so sorry about that. Did you ever have an imaginary friend growing up? Do you have pleasant memories of said imaginary friend? Well, this next story may make you look back on your childhood a little differently. This photo here was shared online years ago. It looks pretty innocuous, 2 kids playing, but the thing is, there was only one youngster present at the time. At least that's what the parents thought. They were watching their son playing in the living room, saying he was talking with his imaginary friend Pauline. Dad snapped a picture, and when they looked back at it, they nearly screamed. Something else was clearly in the room, at least the camera picked something up. And the closer you look at this mysterious figure, the creepier it becomes. The eyes, the smile. Not only does it look unnatural, it has this air of aggression about it. Pretty creepy photo. So this happened back in January in Texas, just outside of Dallas. 2 homeowners were left terrified after someone showed up at their house wearing a red satanic mask and holding a cardboard sign that said Revelation 21:15. If you know that Bible passage, it's all about the apocalypse, judgment day, that kind of thing. So the devil mask is bad enough, but it's really not the message you want showing up right on your front porch. The whole thing was caught on their doorbell camera. It happened around 8 p.m. on a Saturday. You could see the person dressed in all black standing there a few feet from the door, completely still. They ring the doorbell, wait a few seconds, then knock, and when no one answers, they just walk around the side of the house and stand there in the driveway, still holding the sign. The homeowners were not home at the time. They'd gone out to dinner, but they saw the footage later and they freaked out. "I'm scared," the homeowner told CBS. "I'm scared to leave the house. I'm scared to be at the house." She also said, "It's about the end times. It's about Judgment Day. I freaked out." Police looked into it and said the masked person hadn't been seen at any other homes in the area and technically didn't commit a crime. Still, they said they'd keep an eye on the neighborhood just in case. And a little message to viewers here, probably not the best idea to knock on some random person's door wearing a devil mask in Texas. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, just what kind of animal are we looking at here? According to the uploader, it wasn't an animal, at least not one he'd ever seen. Reddit user Corinne James posted the image along with a description reading, "EMT friend saw this 2 nights ago, turning his ambulance around at the end of a rural road. It was swaying and its eyes were glowing without the headlights. This was in central Kentucky." Now, interesting thing about Kentucky, it's the home of the Pope Lick monster, aka Goat Man. So a terrifying part man, part goat hybrid with glowing red eyes. I don't know, am I drawing the wrong connections here? Am I crying? I don't know, but what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. All right, so this video comes from a TikToker named Anelli_RG. Her actual name is Mariana. She took the footage at her church in Mexico. According to her, she always felt a strange, unsettling vibe whenever she was there. Nothing specific she could point to, just a general sense that something wasn't right. So one day she decided to record during Mass to see if she could capture anything unusual on camera, and she did. When she reviewed the footage, she noticed someone or something that she doesn't remember seeing in person at all. It stands out immediately. In her description, she said it wasn't a human, and honestly, it's hard to disagree. The figure looks pale with dark, almost hollow eyes, almost like some lifeless mask. It's not just a case of bad camera quality either. Everyone else in the shot looks completely normal, so what's going on with this ghoulish looking figure? What would you do if you were working overnight security and saw this person show up on your surveillance camera? I say person, but I mean, look at her, it looks more like a zombie to me. So, at a school in Mexico, this security guard was on an overnight shift when he looked at the surveillance camera by the entrance of the building and saw this unsettling looking person staring up at the camera trying to get inside. The glowing eyes, the unusually long looking arms, this is not what I would want to see trying to break into my workplace in the middle of the night. Again, I'd think a zombie invasion was breaking out. This image was posted to Reddit by Dystopia321, who wrote, "This is a camera set up in the woods. Set up to take photos when it senses movement. Main purpose is to take photos of deer and other wildlife. There were no people that could be in the woods at the time, and it had to have been moving to set off the camera. What is this?" Well, I can't say exactly what it is, but I can say it doesn't look good. A rake, a skinwalker, Wendigo, golem. All possible identities mentioned in the comments, and I don't know, those seem like good guesses to me. What a horrifying looking creature. Could it be some extra tall, thin, pale person skulking through the forest alone in the middle of the night? Sure. But that's not really a comforting thought either, is it? What do you all think of this one? This one legitimately gave me chills, because it took me a few seconds staring at the image before I saw it, but when I did, yeah, just no thank you. Reddit user OrangeFood87 shared the picture saying that back in 2012, their roommate received the image from her boyfriend. He was working at a body shop after hours and snapped a photo of this totaled car that had just been brought into the shop. He was alone at the time and didn't see the eerie figure until he looked back at the photo. Apparently, he closed up early that night, and I can't say I blame him. This picture was taken at the South Pittsburgh Hospital by Reddit user Just Okay at Life, who wrote, "Taken in the second-story shadow hall where they report a 7-foot-tall shadow figure. This was taken at the end of the night. There was one other guy with me, and he was in front of me to the left. He had the flashlight, so there's no way this shadow was either of ours. If you have a chance and you happen to be in Tennessee, I highly recommend visiting this place. Earlier in the night, I was walking down a dark hallway alone on the first floor, and from the left side of me, there was a doorway where I heard a hissing sound shoot out of one of the rooms, moving towards me. It was an incredible experience. Incredible experience, that's one way of putting it. Our final clip today comes from Saudi Arabia. YouTuber Adventures Jassim79 was doing what he does best, exploring a creepy abandoned place. This time he was walking through an old rundown house, and when he got to the roof, he caught something incredibly chilling on camera. As he passes by a clothesline, through a small opening between sheets, this ghoulish face with pure black eyes appears. Just as fast as it shows up though, it thankfully vanishes. Yeah, I'd be praying too if I saw that face poking out at me. Seeing as this is in Saudi Arabia, many viewers have commented that this could be more than just a ghost, but a jinn. Spirit-like beings from Muslim tradition that can be invisible, shapeshift, and sometimes exhibit a more classical kind of demonic behavior, tormenting people or in some cases, even possessing them. Genuine or not though, it's a pretty creepy video. In 2001, Manuela and Daniel Ruda, a couple, committed a very horrific crime. They were responsible for the death of their very own friend, Frank Hackert. They believed Hackert was so amusing that he would make the perfect court jester for Satan. The Rudas were deeply involved in occult practices and would apparently sleep in graveyards and go to devil-worshipping ceremonies. And you know what? Nothing wrong with liking spooky stuff, just as long as it doesn't go too far. And in this case, it definitely did. Their fascination with the occult ended in a series of violent rituals that they subjected their friend to, ultimately leading to his death. After killing him, they placed his body in a coffin that they were using as a coffee table. They even attempted to dismember his remains, but were then caught before they could fully dispose of the evidence. In 2002, both Manuela and Daniel were convicted of the crime. Daniel was sentenced to prison, while Manuela was committed to a psychiatric institution. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Unlike most serial killers, Ramirez's crimes were very random. There's just no clear pattern to his method other than brutality for the sake of brutality. He'd attack men, women, old, young. He's responsible for a ton of home invasions, violent attacks, SA, and of course, killings. He also viewed himself as a servant of Satan, leaving symbols of the occult at his crime scenes like pentagrams. During his trial, he famously flashed a pentagram tattoo on his palm, claiming his allegiance to the devil. He believed that he was carrying out the will of Satan, claiming that his acts were a form of worship. He often used the phrase "Satan is great" to justify his actions. Gilles de Rais was born in 1405 in France. He's known for a lot of things. He was a wealthy nobleman, a knight, a leader in the French army during the 100 Years' War, a good friend of Joan of Arc, and one of the most prolific serial killers in history. Around 1432, Gilles de Rais began withdrawing from society, pursuing some of his darker hobbies in secret, and it was at this time that, coincidentally, boys around his castle began to go missing. And when witnesses started noticing bodies being buried by Gilles de Rais' staff members, it became pretty clear that something very dark was going on, but no one was prepared for how truly disturbing things would turn out to be. Well, it turned out Gilles de Rais had a slight obsession with the occult, especially alchemy. In medieval Europe, alchemy was often viewed as a form of black magic. Gilles ended up employing an alchemist from Tuscany named Francois Prelati, who claimed to have a special connection to a demonic entity he called a Baron. Prelati promised that he could summon this spirit to help Gilles with his magical practices. He began providing Prelati with body parts from his young victims, gruesome offerings that would apparently help conjure this demonic entity. It didn't work, and Gilles de Rais was executed for his crimes on October 26th of 1440. He'd taken the lives of 140 boys, possibly and probably far more than that. In 2015, in the small town of Dudley, England, a 65-year-old pensioner named Peter Churn was attacked by a young man named Tommy Smith, who later claimed that he'd been possessed by a demon. In reality, though, Smith just wanted the old man's Range Rover. Peter Churn was in his garage when this possessed Smith wildly attacked him with a blade. The attack was so vicious that his weapon actually snapped in two. Miraculously, Churn survived the attack but suffered a stroke as a result and was blinded in one eye, along with having several slash and stab wounds to his head, chest, neck, back, and ears. Churn later said in court that Tommy Smith had been waving the blade around like a kung fu sword. The old man managed to fight Smith off though. He started pressing on the guy's eyes but blacked out after that from his injuries, obviously. Luckily his son came out of the house though, at which point the devil-possessed blade wielder took off running. The court obviously didn't believe his whole possession story, but instead of prison, Tommy was sentenced to a mental health hospital for the foreseeable future. If I wished I could pay a visit to your city every night, at will I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. That's just one line from a letter published in the paper on March 13th, 1919, written by a man calling himself the Axeman, one of the first modern-day serial killers. The Axeman claimed to be a demon who resided in hell, and his letter acted as a warning to the people of New Orleans that he would kill again if people didn't blare jazz music from their homes on the night of March 19th. Well, the 19th came around, and sure enough, jazz was heard in every home and dance hall throughout the night, and no one was killed. The identity of this mysterious Axeman was never found, but he took the lives of 6 people, leaving 6 others injured, between May of 1918 and October of 1919. Many of his victims were Italian immigrants. He'd quietly sneak into people's homes in the dead of night, bludgeoning them with his axe. Then, as suddenly as the killings began, they just stopped. Sean Sellers had a very troubled upbringing. His mother was very young when she had him, and his father wasn't really in the picture. His grandfather and uncle also put him through severe mistreatment. On several occasions, Sellers' uncle would force him to wear soiled diapers on his head just to humiliate him. By the time he was in 10th grade, he and his family had moved 30 times. Sellers began taking a keen interest in the occult and claimed to have been possessed by a demon on March 5th, 1986, when he snuck into his mother and stepfather's room with a firearm and killed them both. According to him, he'd also carried out an occult-like ritual before deciding to take their lives. The year before this, he'd killed a Circle K convenience store clerk, Robert Paul Bauer, because he'd refused to sell him beer. In 1986, he was sentenced to death for his crimes, making him the youngest criminal ever sentenced to death in America since 1976, a record he still holds to this day. His death sentence wasn't carried out until 1999. In his 13 years in jail, he'd become a born-again Christian, and just 2 days before his death, Sellers wrote in his diary that he was amazed at the, quote, self-righteousness he still encountered from people who didn't know him. Going on to write, "People, for one moment, get your eyes off my sins and look at your own. You want to harp on something that happened 13 years ago. 13 years. In February of 2016, Jason Dalton, who was working as an Uber driver in Kalamazoo, Michigan, went on a shocking spree that left 6 people dead and 2 others injured. What makes this case particularly unsettling is the way Dalton tried to explain his actions during police interrogations. On the night of his spree, Dalton picked up and dropped off passengers, and in between doing this, randomly started shooting at people on the street. He killed 62-year-old Mary Lou Nye, her sister-in-law Joe, 74-year-old Dorothy Brown, 68-year-old Barbara Hawthorne, and father and son Richard and Tyler Smith. When police questioned him, Dalton claimed that the Uber app had somehow taken over his mind and body, stating, "I know you guys are gonna have a hard time believing this, but it literally took over my mind and body." He then described seeing symbols, including the Eastern Star and a horned devil head that would appear on his phone. Dalton received life in prison for his crimes. On September 10th of 2015, a body was discovered in an abandoned car in the Whitestone area of Queens, New York. The victim was 28-year-old Angie Escobar. The medical examiner determined that Angie had been killed about 4 days before her body was found. The New York Police Department quickly identified Luis Zambrano as the prime suspect. He was arrested on September 18th after fleeing to Virginia, but he didn't take long to confess to the crime. Zambrano admitted that he'd attacked Angie with a pair of scissors after she told him she wanted to break up. Zambrano also claimed that he'd been possessed by a demon at the time of the attack. In April 2016, he was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 20 years in prison. On top of that, he was also convicted of an unrelated burglary charge, which added another 3 years to his sentence. I wonder if Satan told him to do that as well. Peter Kurten, often referred to as the Vampire of Dusseldorf, one of the most notorious serial killers in German history, active from February to November of 1929 in the city of Dusseldorf. He had a fascination with people's red bodily fluids and would often drink the BLOOD of his victims, hence his nickname. He carried out several brutal killings and other very disturbing crimes I can't really get into detail on. When he was finally apprehended though, Kurten confessed to his crimes in detail, describing how he felt exhilarated during his crimes. Ultimately, he was convicted and sentenced to beheading in 1931. Between 1976 and 1977, David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam, terrorized New York City with a series of shootings that left 6 people dead and several others injured. One of the strangest parts about the Son of Sam case, though, was Berkowitz's bizarre claim that a demonic dog was instructing him to commit his crimes. He believed this dog, belonging to a neighbor, was possessed and sent by the devil to give him orders. Berkowitz's letters to the police and the media were filled with all these cryptic messages and references to his supposed connection with the supernatural. He also said he was in a satanic cult. During his arrest, he infamously stated that he was just following orders from this demonic entity in the dog. And the Son of Sam became a name that would haunt headlines for years. After his capture, Berkowitz was diagnosed with various mental health issues, but he continued to insist that he was acting under the influence of some sort of evil force. In 1978, he pled guilty to his crimes and was given 6 consecutive 25 years to life sentences, one for each of his crimes. He's still alive and in prison to this day.
It is said that a demon's eye color signifies its order in the mythological hierarchy of the demon society, with black-eyed demons being the most common and the weakest demons around, which, by the way, in no means stops them from being absolutely terrifying in every way, shape, and form imaginable. Anyways, it is said that the black-eyed demons are subservient variant to higher ranking and stronger demons, and while they may appear small, they tend to travel in groups ranging from 5 to 100, so keep that in mind. These demons are also said to be incredibly strong, fast, and durable. You want to break their legs? It doesn't bother them. Maybe drive a stake through their heart. Better luck next time. Even automatic projectiles won't stop these guys, and that is because the demons are not really connected to the bodies they possess. They just control them as though draped in an oversized mascot costume. And of course, they are also known to possess telekinetic abilities, and they really enjoy tormenting the living. So if you see one, run. A particular subject of black-eyed demons are the black-eyed young ones, best known for their mischievous and malevolent nature. The black-eyed young ones are paranormal creatures said to inhabit the bodies of specifically young people, likely because 1, that's insanely terrifying, and 2, it's a lot easier to lure people in when you seem like nothing more than a lost young person wandering the road at night or begging on the street corner. But don't think staying inside of your car or never leaving the house will keep you from accidentally running into one of these young-looking demons. No, that would be too easy. In reality, these malevolent little trash creatures are known to be quite bold, approaching and knocking on car windows and doors, and even sometimes walking straight into homes and possibly your bedroom and other buildings despite receiving absolutely no invitation. Generally, you will know you have encountered a little demon before ever seeing their eyes, as they are often said to be accompanied by an almost crippling sense of both fear and dread. So if you're feeling fearful and dreadful right now, look around.
Stories of youngsters with pure black eyes, like the ones Hannah just mentioned, have been told around campfires for decades, but the first written stories may have come about in 1996 from a Texas reporter named Brian Bethl. Bethl had a terrifying encounter in 1996, and the story of this encounter ended up on a message board. The story quickly spread to other early internet forums, and today many view it as a sort of proto-creepypasta, but to this day, Bethl insists that he wasn't making any of it up. He'd been sitting in his car in a parking lot outside a movie theater one night in Abilene, Texas. He was dropping off a check and was using a street light in the parking lot to write it. Just as he was getting ready to drive off though, he suddenly heard a knock on his window. He looked up to see a pair of young boys staring down at him. Through the window he could hear their muffled voices pleading with him to give them a ride. But there was something off. Why were these two boys out alone so late at night? More importantly, why were their eyes pure black? No sclera, no irises, just deep black orbs. Bethl immediately felt this oppressive sense of doom in the pit of his stomach. Without thinking twice, he put his foot on the gas and roared out of the parking lot. He knew something was very, very wrong. He shared his story in private emails to 2 coworkers, but eventually it ended up in the local paper and then the internet. Bethl expected everyone to think he was crazy, and some did, but others began sharing their own stories. Aside from the Brian Bethl account, the next most well-known Black Eyes encounter came from a Reddit post 13 years back with the heading, "Warning to people in Portland, Oregon metro area this Halloween." The Redditor said that his neighbor, who was known for his elaborate Halloween decorations, hadn't put out his usual display. And the neighbor ended up telling him that he planned to keep his house dark this Halloween because of a frightening experience he'd had the year before. The neighbor said that after his brother's family had left, he received a late night visit from 2 teenagers who weren't in costumes, but they did have unusually large irises and dilated pupils. They asked to use his phone, claiming they were lost. The neighbor immediately felt off. Something just didn't seem right about these 2. He thought they might have been on something or were going to try and rob him, so he sent them away and locked the door. Then he stayed up all night, just terrified that they might try to break in. The Redditor listened to what his neighbor said and was immediately reminded of the urban legends of the black-eyed entities. So he mentioned the legend to the neighbor, who had never heard of them before. And later the neighbor returned to the Redditor's house visibly disturbed, saying he found the similarities pretty striking. He'd obviously gone online to read about it himself.
This next story comes from Reddit user Wonder Wookman. I think they probably spelled woman wrong or it was taken. Anyways, it goes as follows. What happened was one night I was in bed and something woke me up, but I wasn't sure what it was. I just knew something forced me to wake up. So at that point I rolled over and looked around my room and it's bathed in this blue light. There was a window in my room, but there's nothing that would cause it to light up blue like that. It was bright enough though that I could make out the details of objects in my room. And on my floor was someone or something crouched down, and it looked like they were maybe playing with a toy. It was hard to tell because their back was to me, but there was definitely a young human crouching there. Thinking it was my stepbrother who came into my room to play with a toy that he had left in there or something, I asked if it was him. I don't remember much after that, but I do remember this thing turned around, still in the crouch position, and when it looked at me, all I saw were completely black eyes and pale white skin. I remember pulling the blankets up over my head because it terrified me so bad, but that's all I remember. I never had an experience like that again, but the house I grew up in was super haunted and my entire family had so many experiences that we've tried to explain, but never could. I don't know about you guys, but in that situation I probably would have given that small little demon a big ol' roundhouse kick and then run out of the room rather than just throwing a blanket over my head and hoping for the best, but you know, to each their own, I guess.
Apparently there are a good number of black-eyed sightings in Cano Chase in Staffordshire, England, for some reason. Just in 2022, a story came out in the Staffordshire News about a young couple who had a traumatizing encounter while camping. It was around midnight when they started to hear what sounded like a young girl giggling outside their tent. They unzipped it and turned on their flashlights to see what the hell was going on, and spotted a small girl running from tree to tree, hiding behind them and intermittently poking her head out to peer at them. Then she, or it, walked out into a clearing right in front of them and just stared, continuing to giggle. Her eyes were nothing but black. The girlfriend claimed that it, quote, moved in ways humans simply can't move. It was like it could teleport from one place to another when it was moving around and hiding behind the trees, end quote. Then the thing bent down, adjusted its shoe, and skipped down a path leading deeper into the woods. The couple just huddled in their tent, terrified, waiting for the sun to rise.
This next story comes from Reddit user Bailey Diane. It goes like this. I was working in an office that did mainly business-to-business sales. Since we weren't in a great part of town and we weren't exactly open to the public, I kept the door to our office locked. The only way to work the lock was with a key from either side. I had stepped outside to go on a sales call, but before I did, I looked out the window and there were two young boys walking about a block away from me. No big deal. I could easily be safely to my car before they reached where I was, but before I knew it, the young men were much closer than they should have been. It was like they had walked a city block in a split second. My fight or flight kicked in. I had no reason to be afraid, but I felt a deep fear. So I went back inside and locked the door. I'm not even sure how to describe the fear I felt that led me to rush back inside though. All of a sudden, these young men started banging on the door. Only one of the two of them spoke. He said, "We need a phone, let us in." I yelled no through the door, but he kept banging on the glass so hard that it was vibrating. I threatened to call the cops, but they kept banging and begging to use the phone. So finally I got brave enough to get a better look at them so I could give a description to the police, and their eyes were pitch black. I'm not super religious, but in the moment, for some reason, I just yelled, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave," and they disappeared. Just vanished. End of story. That sounds terrifying. I mean, as if young people weren't already intimidating enough. You go ahead and throw some demon in there and you've got enough nightmare fuel to last you all year.
From Reddit user Baby Milk Cow comes the story of the demon in the closet. Not my story, but my dad's. He grew up with a single mom and 4 other siblings in southeast Texas on the border of Louisiana. He says he and his brother were sleeping on the couch in their living room and they both woke up to a black-eyed youngster standing in the doorway of their closet. He said the thing looked older than them by a little, had black eyes and orange hair, and had a slight glow to him, like he was under his own spotlight. He said he and his brother tried to scream, but nothing would come out. The thing just disappeared after that. The reason everyone knows this is true? Well, a couple months ago, me, my mom, and my dad were at my grandma's house, and my uncle was watching a documentary on black-eyed demons. When my dad brought up what had happened to them all those years ago, my uncle started tearing up and just kept repeating, "Man, you seen that too? I thought it was crazy. I can't believe you seen him too." My uncle has a history with illicit substances and mental health problems, and for over 50 years he assumed what he saw was fake and just his mind playing tricks on him. It's sad because we think that this situation shook him up so badly he started using as a teen to cope with the thought that he may have been crazy. They were so scared they just never brought it up ever again after that, but my dad always told my mom that story ever since they started dating. My grandma, who was sitting there listening to them talk about what happened, just said, "Oh, there was something in that house, Lord."
This next story comes from Reddit user LogDog1201. When I was about 16, I had started developing a sleep paralysis phenomenon. It happened every other night or so. Most times when I woke up in an episode, it didn't feel right. Something felt odd every time. I could see my room and still hear my fan, but something felt like it was almost watching me. I thought it was normal paranoia, as most say you experience in sleep paralysis, but the fourth time I experienced it, there was a young person-looking figure sitting at the edge of my bed. It turned towards me and just stared with its pitch black eyes. I was freaking out a lot, and it's worse because you can't scream or move, just watch. The young creature then stood up, got off my bed, and walked right through my wall towards my sister's room. I fell asleep shortly after that, but I brought this encounter up to my sister a year later or so, only for her to say that she saw a young person with no eyes in front of her closet doorway, just staring at her. End of story. I have to say, if my sibling told me they saw a literal demon crawl through their wall and into my room and all they did was go to sleep, I would be livid. They would literally never hear the end of it, ever. Luckily everyone's okay, but still, I'd be pissed.
This final tale is one I'm going to call the Apple. It's been floating around the internet for years now, and it has this perfect urban legend type of charm about it. So a woman in Texas is puttering around the house when she hears her doorbell ring. She answers the door and finds two youngsters standing on her doorstep. One is holding an apple. She's immediately taken aback by the fact that, yes, they both have pure black eyes. They ask the woman if she can let them in. Now, this is already very odd, but even stranger, she's out in a very rural area, basically in the middle of nowhere. Just where exactly did these two come from? Then this deep sense of dread starts to fill the air when one of the black-eyed visitors asks the woman, "Can I at least have some ketchup for my apple?" The woman declines and shuts the door, immediately locking it.
Coming in at number 10 is Herman the Recluse. The Codex Gigas was published in the early 13th century and is written by Herman the Recluse, a monk who broke his monastic vow and was sentenced to be walled up alive. Now, in order to try and escape his dire fate, he promised to write a book that would glorify the monastery forever, a book that contained the entire knowledge of the universe. Now, Herman the Recluse was given one try to complete the book, and if he hadn't finished it by dawn, the sentence would be executed. Realizing by midnight that the task was impossible, Herman turned to the devil, who helped him finish the book for the price of his soul. Now, this book is also referred to as the Devil's Bible due to a fully colored portrait of Satan taking up a whole page. And when I say whole page, I mean a full 36-inch page. Now, the page next to the illustration contains a full description of the kingdom of heaven, and some say that Satan's portrait is his own signature, and others believe that Herman drew the portrait himself as a thanks. 9. Oliver Cromwell. In 1651, on the eve of the Battle of Worcester, Oliver Cromwell allegedly met the devil in the woods. An alleged account by Colonel Lindsay, first captain of Oliver Cromwell's own regiment, described how he was taken with Oliver himself into the woods to meet a grave elderly man with a roll of parchment in his hand. This man filled Lindsay with an uncontrollable horror and trembling as he realized who this visitor really was. The aged unknown promised Oliver to have his will then and all things else for 7 years, at which date it would be his, the devil's, turn to complete mastery over Oliver's soul and body. According to the tale, Oliver had argued with the devil over the short span, expecting 21 years. After the bargain was made, Oliver was reputed and have cried out joyously to the colonel, "Now, Lindsay, the battle is our own. I long to be engaged." And with remarkable precision, the leader of England's only experiment in Republican government died exactly 7 years later amid terrible storms in September 1658. Psychic. A
user online detailed their experience they had with the devil. They said, "A few years ago, I joined a psychic development class. We would hold seances and communicate with dead relatives. I didn't realize that opening myself up to the spirit world would mean communication with dark forces as well as light. For a period of a few weeks, I'd been having strange dreams. I decided to finally hold a seance myself and see who was trying to get in touch with me, and that's when he showed up, Satan. We communicated telepathically for at least half an hour. He said a lot of things I wasn't expecting. He told me God had forsaken our planet, and that's why so many bad things were happening. He said he was disgusted with some of the things happening right now, war, poverty, etc., and was angry that God allowed it to happen. He actually said that he loved humanity and was misunderstood. He wasn't the devil the Bible was talking about. The strangest thing was his appearance. It was not frightening or demonic. To me, he appeared as a young man, no older than 20. He was what most women would consider handsome, around 5'7" and an average build, blonde brown hair and piercing blue-gray eyes. He showed little emotion and was quite factual in the way he spoke. He came across as intelligent, sophisticated, and wise. He had gigantic wings and was surrounded by bright light, almost a completely white aura that radiated out by a few feet. As he appeared, I could hear the most heavenly voices speaking and singing. He was able to mention and recite Bible verses I'd never even heard of or read. Above all else, he did not like to be referred to as the devil. He wants to be known as an archangel and believes that humanity seriously misunderstands him and the spirit world altogether. Number 7. Father Urbain Grandier. In 1632 in Leuton, France, a number of nuns accused Father Urbain Grandier, a Catholic priest, of bewitching them and sending a league of demons to commit vile acts with them. They even had the names of the demons. Now, a trial was quickly conducted by the church and the priest was questioned. During the trial, he was accused of having sexual relationships with many women, and then a document was produced in front of the judges, which was allegedly the contract that Urbain had made with the devil. It had not only the signature of Urbain, but also the signature of several demons, including the devil himself. The contract was written backwards in Latin and translated to the following: "We, the influential Lucifer, the young Satan, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Elmi, and Astaroth, together with others, have today accepted the covenant pact of Urbain Grandier, who is ours. And him do we promise the love of women, the flower of virgins, and respect of monarchs, honors, lusts, and powers. He will go whoring 3 days long. The carousel will be dear to him. He offers us once in the year a seal of blood. Under the feet he will trample the holy things of the church, and he will ask us many questions. With this pact, he will live 20 years happy on the earth of men, and will later join us to sin against God, bound in hell in the council of demons." Now, due to this, Father Urbain Grandier was later burned at the stake for charges of witchcraft. Number 6. Several meetings. When asked if anyone had ever met the devil, this online user said, "Yes, several times. Meeting and talking with him is not very pleasant. He has a very cold presence. He spoke always with a hint of disdain, like he was constantly mocking. I think I only saw him once where he was being candid, and then I'm probably wrong, and he only wanted me to think that. Either way, it was not my idea of fun to be sitting in the same room with a serious Satan. Now that I think back, I wonder if he puts up a comic front to try to get you to think that he isn't as grim as a person as he really is, using humor as an illusion for warmth. He is definitely a master of distraction and deception, and it can be confusing to talk with him, and I wouldn't recommend trying. Overall, it wasn't the happiest of circumstances I found myself in. Number 5. Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson was an American blues musician from the early 20th century who, as legend has it, acquired his musical powers from a midnight deal with the devil. Born in 1911, Robert grew up alongside the Mississippi Delta. As a young man, he yearned for musical greatness and one night took his guitar to the crossroads in hopes of conjuring dark forces. The devil appeared and took Robert's guitar, played a few songs, and then handed it back, granting the young musician complete mastery of the instrument. instrument. The story thus explained Robert's extraordinary skill. It also led to rumors that Robert's drooping eye spoke of an infernal connection, and that he turned away from his audience while performing to hide the presence of evil. Now, Robert did very little to discourage these stories. If anything, he played into it with lyrics such as, "Early this morning when you knocked upon my door, and I said, 'Hello, Satan, I believe it's time to go.'" Now, in 1938, he died under mysterious circumstances at the age of 27. Some say he succumbed to syphilis, others poisoning, whereas others contended it was the devil himself collecting his due. 4. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. In the 1500s, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa was a scholar who devoted his life to writing about the occult. In his books, he mentioned the devil a lot and breaks down exactly how witches perform magic spells. You may be wondering how exactly he got all his information, and well, he claimed that when he was a young man, he gave in to the temptations of the devil and learned how to perform magic by following around groups of witches. He apparently then found Jesus and managed to save his own soul. He wrote his books in order to teach others to keep the devil at bay. During his lifetime, he published 8 huge books about the occult. Even though he was so public about being friends with the devil, he was never put to death for witchcraft. Perhaps he was seen as publishing such valuable information on how to battle the devil, they just wanted to keep him alive to learn more. While it would seem that he would have been promoting witch hunts in the church, he actually pushed for people to be more sympathetic and understanding. He wanted to try to help save them from the devil's grasp and have God save them through prayer, rather than burning them at the stake. Lifesaver. Another online user had this to say when it came to meeting the devil. "It actually wasn't that scary, he actually saved my life. I was being attacked by a bunch of demons and he literally snapped his fingers and blew them up. I can't get him to go away now. Everywhere I look, he is there, but not in a threatening way. More like a guardian angel way. I prefer his brother Gabriel though because he is very funny. I'm not kidding. He is sitting next to me right now. I know it must seem like I'm crazy or something, or just making fun of the question, but I'm not. I'm being dead serious." 2. John Fian. John Fian was a doctor and school teacher who was declared as a notorious sorcerer. He confessed to having a compact with Satan during the North Berwick witch trials in Scotland, which he confessed to King James as the trial proceedings were taking place, but later promised that he would renounce his compact with Satan and vow to lead the life of a Christian. But the next morning, he confessed the devil came to him in his cell dressed all in black and holding a white wand, demanding John continue his faithful service, according to his first oath and promise that he made. John testified that he renounced Satan to his face, saying, "Get thee behind me, thou Satan, and start pushing, for I have listened too much to thee, and by the same thou hast undone me, in respect whereof I will utterly undo you." He confessed that the devil then answered, "That once ere thou die, thou shalt be mine." The devil afterwards broke the white wand and immediately vanished from his sight. John then was given a chance to lead the life he promised, but the same night he stole a key to his cell and escaped. He was eventually captured and tortured until his execution on January 27th, 1591. And coming in at number 1 is General Jonathan Molton. General Jonathan Molton was born in the month of July 1726 and was not always extraordinarily wealthy. In the year 1749, he married his first wife and had 11 children with her. He soon settled in Hampton, Virginia, and surprisingly got filthy rich in no time. His sudden accumulation of so much wealth in such a short amount of time came as a surprise to the poor neighborhood, and it was alleged that he had made deals with the devil. Locals alleged that he had made a contract with the devil in which the devil was supposed to give him a boot full of gold. But Jonathan tore open the sole of the boot so that the boot would never be full of gold. When the devil learned that he was being tricked, he took revenge on him in the strangest way possible that cemented the face that they made a deal. Upon his death at the age of 61 years, his body went missing from the coffin, and instead the coffin was filled with gold coins, having the seal of Satan himself. The locals buried the gold-filled coffin anyway. His body was never found, and no grave mark was put in its place. Number 10, the violinist. It's been long said that successful artists have made a deal with the devil, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. An Italian violinist named Giuseppe Tartini claimed the devil appeared to him in a dream and played for him the most incredible piece of music he had ever heard. Here is how he described the experience. "One night in the year 1713, I dreamed I had made a pact with the devil for my soul. Everything went as I wished, my new servant anticipated my every desire. Among other things, I gave him my violin to see if he could play. How great was my astonishment on hearing a sonata so wonderful and so beautiful, played with such great art and intelligence as I had ever even conceived in my boldest flights of fantasy. Upon waking, Giuseppe tried to recreate it, and that became his magnum opus, known as the Devil's Trill Sonata." Number 9. Exorcism gone wrong. In 1997, Father Gabriel Amorth conducted his exorcisms in Rome, and he asked for the help of Jesus, and the young man he was dealing with began to curse and spit, and started using English instead of his native Italian. Screaming and howling, the demon burst forth and looked straight at him, drooling saliva from the young man's mouth. Father Gabriel said he returned fire with prayers and other ritual recitations, demanding that the demon reveal its name. He said, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The man fixed him with a glare, snarled, and said, "I am Lucifer." Father Gabriel was shocked. He did not expect to receive such a terrifying response. The father mostly used prayers as his weapon, reciting verses of liberation from the Roman rite of exorcism. As Father Gabriel continually commanded the demon to leave the host, it eventually left, but my goodness, that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 8. Witch trials. Sarah Good was one of the first 3 women to be accused of witchcraft in the Salem witch trials, which occurred in 1692 in Massachusetts. On March 25th, 1692, Sarah was tried for witchcraft, and when she was brought in, the accusers immediately began to rock back and forth and moan, seemingly in response to Sarah's presence. Later in the trial, one of the accusers fell into a fit. Now, Sarah denied the allegations against her, but another woman on trial admitted to being the devil's servant. She stated that a tall man dressed in all black came to them, demanding they sign their names in a great book. Although initially refusing, she eventually wrote her name after Sarah, and another woman forced her to. When Sarah was allowed the chance to defend herself in front of the 12 jurors in the Salem Village Meeting House, she argued her innocence, proclaiming that the other 2 were the real witches. In the end, however, Sarah was convicted of witchcraft and sentenced to death. So, did she really meet the devil, or was she innocent? Who knows? Number 7. Strayed from the path. This is the testimony of Jennifer Perez, who was brought up in a Christian home. She strayed from that path, got into drugs, died, and was sent to hell. Fortunately, she was given a second chance, but this is her story. She was in the hospital and her spirit woke up, but her body didn't. As a spirit, 2 men dressed in red approached her and told her to come with them. She went to heaven and saw the Lord and 2 angels, Gabriel and Michael. She and Gabriel went through a black door, and it was dark and they were falling. The farther they fell, the hotter it was, and she said it smelled like sulfur. They got to the bottom and she realized that she was in hell, seeing people being tortured by various demons. The cries and torture scared her, and then she saw a massive red creature in the middle of it all, just watching everything. She assumed that this was the devil, and it terrified her. After this, she then ascended back to heaven and was asked for a second chance. She then woke up in the hospital, alive, and devoted the rest of her life to God. Number 6. Mom met the devil. A user on Reddit posted this story about the time their mother met the devil. They said, "My mom told me a story of when she met the devil. She was in high school, she had a friend who was dating an older man. He was probably 20 to 30 years older than her, and he gave her a necklace. Not wanting to get caught by her parents, she gave the necklace to my mom. She wore it, and that night when my mom slept, she dreamt of a man. Clean cut and handsome, but disturbingly evil. She said all she knew about the man was that he was pure evil. He came up to her face, eyes locked on her, stone cold and expressionless, reached for her neck and grabbed the necklace from her neck and twirled it in a circle in the air like a witch's pendant. She jolted awake and couldn't feel the necklace, and in a panic she looked all around for the necklace and found it under her pillow in a perfect spiral. Number 5. TikTok doctor. Once, a man who was pronounced dead by his doctor after being injured said that rather than seeing a bright light and the feeling of coming home, he instead saw hell itself and met the devil. A doctor took to TikTok to explain that he encountered a young man in his early 20s who had been stabbed in the heart after being involved in a deal that went wrong. Not willing to let the man die, medical staff took the victim into surgery, kept him from losing too much blood, and treated the wound in his heart. The doctor remembers the man waking up 4 hours later and crying, claiming that he went straight down to hell and looked straight in the eyes of the devil. The man said he could see the doctors working to save his life, and having never prayed before, gave it a try, at which point an angel pulled him back up out of hell. Remembering how clear the man had been, the doctor said it was the most amazing experience because he was legit. I mean, nobody makes up an experience like that. The last I heard, he's completely changed his life, he gave his life to God, and I still to this day, the look in his eyes when he woke up, the terror, I'm absolutely convinced he did meet the devil. Number 4. Working for the devil. Gilles de Rais was originally hailed a hero of France for his role in the 100 Years' War, a time during which he served as a comrade in arms to Joan of Arc, but the nobleman Gilles de Rais lived a secret, gruesome second life where he enjoyed ending the lives of people who couldn't defend themselves. In September 1440, de Rais was arrested after an almost decade-long spree in which he may have ended the lives of over 140 victims. During his trial, both de Rais and several of his servants/accomplices confessed to their evil deeds. Besides ending people's lives, he also admitted to engaging in Satanism by reportedly summoning the devil and his demonic minions. While the nobleman refused to sell his soul, he offered the blood and organs of his victims in exchange for knowledge and power over the dark arts. Number 3. God wanted her to see hell. Josefa Menendez was a young Spanish sister who had a short religious life of great suffering and experienced many revelations throughout her life. More than once she was taken to hell to witness and feel the suffering firsthand. Sister Josefa was reluctant to write on the subject of hell, and did so only to conform to her Lord's wishes. She wrote about her experiences in her journal, and she described it as the greatest torment of hell, namely the soul's inability to love. She wrote, "One of these damned souls cried out, 'This is my torture, that I want to love and cannot. There is nothing left me but hatred and despair. If one of us could so much as make a single act of love, but we cannot, we live on hatred." As mentioned, she went to hell multiple times, but one time she saw the devil. She wrote, "Souls were crying out and the devil answered, 'Insinuate yourselves by including carelessness in them, but keep in the background so that you are not found out. Tempt these others into ambition, into self-interest, to acquiring wealth without working, whether it be lawful or not." That entry was from February 3rd, 1923. She visited hell many times after that, but didn't report on seeing the devil again. And that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 2. In a coma. Will Carroll is a drummer who has been in the band Death Angel since 2009 and has provided the drum tracks for their last 4 studio albums. After spending nearly 2 weeks in a coma fighting Will revealed that during his battle with the virus, he saw the afterlife, where he would be sent to hell and meet Satan. The illness left him in a critical state where he was put on a ventilator while lying unconscious in a California Pacific Medical Center hospital bed for 12 days before recovering. He said that the devil would punish him for the deadly sin of sloth. The musician said Satan would transform him into a creature similar to that of Star Wars' Jabba the Hutt, and that he would vomit blood until he ultimately had a heart attack. Will told the San Francisco Chronicle that what he went through allowed him to change some of his typical lifestyle habits, including his once heavy alcohol and illegal substance use. "I'm also going to listen to satanic metal though," he joked, but he later admitted that after beating COVID-19, he doesn't think Satan's quite as cool as he used to. And coming up at number 1, The Devil Made Me Do It. Sound familiar? It's because the third Conjuring movie has the same title. This film is inspired by the real events that took place with Arnie Johnson. Ed and Lorraine Warren were helping exorcise a possessed boy named David Glatzel in the early 80s. David's family had seen him being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks had appeared on his neck afterwards. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible as well. They did many exorcisms on David, and Lorraine said that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. During his exorcisms, there was also a rocking chair in the room that would allegedly rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. Arnie then coerced one of the demons to possess him while participating in one of David's exorcisms. Afterwards, Arnie's personality changed. He would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. Then one day, his and his girlfriend Debbie's landlord was drunk and misbehaving, so Ernie ended his life. The day after the incident, Lorraine Warren informed the Brookfield police that Ernie was possessed when the crime was committed. The case then went on to trial, where Ernie's defense was demonic possession and the devil made me do it. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Ernie of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5.